everybody, Jillian here. Thanks for joining me for the latest episode of my Heritage Scrapbook. I might as well call this all of the supplies I didn't use. I originally pulled out a bunch of these crepe paper items and a few from Studio Calico thinking that I would want to use them to scrap a couple pictures of my family 61 years ago. This weekend in the US we're going to be celebrating Labor Day. And I happened to be flipping through some old family albums that my aunt had sent me, and I noticed these that were from September 1954. Now, I have no way of knowing if that was actually Labor Day that they were celebrating at this family cookout, but I'm going to go with that, and I feel pretty good about it. So what I'm doing is using 3 different collections from crepe paper here, and I had a really difficult time figuring out which papers I was going to use. So you're just seeing me here going back and forth. The large floral and the red and white polka dot are from the Close Knit collection, as well as the family tree style background paper that I'm going to use. I pull in the 6x6 piece of floral paper from the Storytellers collection, which is really old, and that lighter pink is from the Wonder collection. So originally I had all of these 6x6 sheets pulled out for a different project that I wanted to use, and I said, you know, why save them? Just go ahead and use them. So those are the papers that I end up using. So what I do is end up cutting off 1.5 inches of each side of this pattern paper so that the circle is centered in the middle. I have this thing with using pattern papers, mostly, sometimes embellishments. I kind of hesitate to use them at first, especially new products, because once I use it, then it's gone. And I have had to tell myself to try and get away from that mindset that if you use it and you really want it, you can always buy another piece of paper. You can always buy another pack of enamel dots. You know, they should be there. So I have never had to resort to that to go out and get a duplicate of something because I've already used it, but that's just something that I kind of tell myself to trick myself into using product. So I don't know if any of you guys have that problem. Maybe you can employ that strategy. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to mat the photos on these 2 pieces of paper, and I'm just looking there to see which phrases I don't think I would use from the reverse of that pattern paper, and the words perfect and something else were cut off, and so I ended up taking the pattern paper from where those words were. I'm just creating a thin mat around these photos, and it makes them a little larger than 4x4, which is what I just cut the cork and the floral pattern piece of paper down to. So I'm going to have to get creative with the grid layout and just kind of overlap things so that they look relatively the same size. Before I adhere anything down, I'm grabbing the embellishments that I thought I might want to use. I saw when I was going through the close-knit paper pad that I have, this cut-apart sheet kind of fell out, and I really liked that close-knit sentiment that's on, I think, what is supposed to be the top of like a ribbon spool. So I cut that out, and I'm going to pop that up on some film so that it's like the main embellishment on the page. I'm using the Maggie Holmes Confetti thickers to put my title down. It's simply going to say Labor Day 1954. And I'm going to go through my alpha stickers here and pull some tiles out that I think might work for the year. So I end up going with the black tile stickers. They're from Joann, and I think they got them in, I think they were 99 cents. They're pretty inexpensive. So I'm going to pop up that little piece of ephemera with some scraps from my foam pieces. And then I thought that maybe I would want to create a border around those 2 pieces of pattern paper just to bring this blue and the yellow in, because I like those colors. They're in the floral pattern, which is my favorite from that collection. So I wanted to bring in those colors, and that is not the way that I end up doing it. So in an effort to kind of figure out where I want things before I get everything stuck down, I'm pulling out the embellishments that I had pre-selected that I don't use. I have these Those are the puffy stickers from Craft Market. I end up using those gold stars. I also have some stars and hearts from Studio Calico and those wood buttons that I've pulled out probably like 3 or 4 times to use on my heritage layouts, and I haven't used them, so maybe one day. So I'm using my ruler here to make sure that the layout is in the center of the page. It's something that I typically don't do, but I was having a hard time determining that today for some reason. I often just want to put my nose in the layout. I have terrible vision, and I have to keep reminding myself that I can't do that when the camera's on, because then you guys are just going to see my head. So I'm going ahead and getting everything stuck down. I feel like I have a pretty good idea of where everything is going to go on the layout. So after I get my titles stuck down, I fidget with those tiles for a little bit just to make sure that they are where I want them on the page. And then I just kind of take inventory of what's happened so far, and I'm realizing that there's just not much else happening on here aside from this big block of stuff. So I thought about, adding some more pattern paper to the right and left of that grid, but instead I add it to the top and bottom of the layout, which is something that I don't typically do, but I like the way that it turned out. So I'm just using scraps and cutting thin strips of the pieces I've already used so that I can bring in those patterns again. So I'm going to take the floral pattern, and that's going to go in the opposite corner of the layout. And same thing with the cork and the pink. And this is how I end up bringing in the blue and the yellow pattern paper also. I'm not measuring anything, I'm just cutting different width strips, which I'm going to glue and then staple down onto the layout. But first, I'm just kind of getting everything staged before I adhere it, because there's nothing worse than having to rip up stuff a million times. So I'm going to take my tiny attacher and then just staple it a few times on the top and bottom, and then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and get the excess trimmed off. Ta-da! Oh, still more to trim off. So then I'm going to kind of think about what I want to journal on this page, and while I'm doing that, I want to stamp something. So I'm taking my A Beautiful Mess stamps that came in a messy box, and I'm stamping Our Family above the title in my Ranger Black Archival ink. And I really like the way that the stamp looks on the cork. So I thought maybe I would just journal around the photos. Instead, what I do is I put 2 dots to the right and left of the center of that the piece of circle ephemera, and on the top part, on that top curve, I'm writing the journaling for the top photo, and then on the bottom curve, like on the bottom half of that circle, I'm writing the journaling for the bottom. I'm just identifying my great-grandmother and my grandmother, who are the women on the left in the top photo, and then in the bottom photo, my great-grandmother is second from the right. And in all of the photos that I have of her, she's really not smiling or laughing, and that's why I love this photo of her so much, and I wanted to draw attention to that. I also am being sure to identify everyone in these photos, well, at least those that are directly related to me, because I found that that didn't necessarily happen in some of the older family albums that I have. And looking at some of these photos that are maybe 80 or 90 years old, there's really not anyone around who can tell me who they are. All that to say, here is my finished layout. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. The journaling, I promise, is way easier to read in person. Please, if you guys want to see more videos like this, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, or subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.